You're watching the Norfolk Southern Sherwood Subdivision. I'm Harold. Thanks for watching. Today we continue our painting project for our Merchants Row 1 building, which is part of our building structure complex in Sherwood. You can see other videos about how we began this painting process. We are to the point where we have covered up the brick paint with masking. And now we're going to do all these details. Now you could do them by hand. We've chosen to do as much as we can with the airbrush because it will give us better coverage and it won't suffer from inaccurate painting or shaky hands or things like that. So it's not a large area. And we're going to use, and we've debated about colors for a while. The color we've chosen, this one. Mission Models White. It being white, it's probably going to take a couple of coats. In order to get started, we have to get our airbrush ready. We will put the paint in our airbrush and we will turn on, doesn't take much paint. During this process, we will be tempted to overpaint and put too much paint on in trying to get single coat coverage, which is probably impossible with a light color like white. So we will put as much on as we think is necessary, and we'll live with the fact that we didn't get complete coverage, and we'll have to come back and do a second coat. So turn the airbrush on. Here we go. Done, at least the first coat's done. And you can see we didn't get complete coverage. And that's what we were expecting with the light coat of paint, or the light color paint, this being white. Our next task will be, besides cleaning the airbrush, will be to apply a second coat of white paint to this. Returning now to look at the updates on our Merchants Row 1 structure. We've completed the brick painting, the stone painting, and we've started to paint some of the details. We have green here and some of the details of white. And we have been doing that by masking off various sections. One of the consequences of doing that is you'll see a loss of paint here and here. That will have to be touched up probably by a brush. It won't look bad. It's just something that happens when you do a lot of masking, even though we're trying to manipulate the masking tape so it doesn't have as much stick. It still takes some of the paint off. That's just the way it is. What we're going to do next is we're going to have a gray color here and here, and a tan color here, here, and here. And we'll do some masking to support that, and we'll show you what that looks like when we come back. The masking has been completed, and the exposed areas are going to get tan here, and medium gray here and here. We have seen the act of airbrushing in previous segments. No point in showing you that again. When we are finished, we will show you the result. Having completed the airbrushing of the gray part here and the tan part here, we can now see the results. What we're seeing, the paint itself looks okay. What we're seeing is kind of what we expected. We've had a loss of paint here as a result of the masking from the green here, from the gray, and we overmasked. We missed a spot here, and a little bit of the white paint has come off. We expected to be able to have to do some touch-up, so that will be a necessity. At this point, it's one of those, how far do you want to go? We could leave it having touched up the paint. We might want to, for example, brush paint by hand some of the areas around the windows to make those stand out. And it's likely that I will actually do that. For the most part, I think we're satisfied pretty much with what we have done so far. We have to do the touch-up painting and install the glazing and the roof, which has not been put on yet. and we have to install the lighting, and there are a number of other things we need to do. But good progress has been made, and this is the result so far. We have returned to the workbench where we're going to do some detail painting on our Merchants Row 5 structure. Specifically, we're going to paint around the windows. And I've already, as you can see, applied an initial coat of paint, which, being the light color, did not cover properly. So we're going to apply a second coat. And I'll just show you the details of how you do that briefly, and then we'll finish it up and I'll show you the result. The other option, of course, is airbrushing, but that would require a more than my capabilities amount of masking around here. So what we're going to do is we're going to finish brush painting these 3 window areas, and after we're done, and I'm sure you can see that in some of these areas, we're going to need to apply some brown touch-up paint. So here we go. What you're trying to do is get full coverage. This is a second coat. And you're also trying to not smear the paint onto areas where you don't want it. Yes, you can do touch-up, but you don't want to do a lot of touch-up. I'll just show you a little bit of this. And what we're trying to do, of course, is highlight the windows. Otherwise, they'd just be brown like the rest of the structure. So you get the idea. We're brush painting the details. And when we're done, we'll take a look at the results and we'll see where we go from there. We have done the touch-up painting on our 3 windows. And we could go further and do some of these other pieces, but at this point, I believe I've decided not to do that. So that's what it looks like now. In a second, we'll give you a comparison of how this looks with all these details painted in there. And keep in mind, I have not done all the required touch-up that will make this look even better, for example, in this area. To a similar structure where we've done all the airbrushing, but have done none of the detail painting, and we'll think about which ones of those we like better. So stay tuned for that. We are now in a position to do a comparison of the 2 structures. The structure on the left, this structure here, is Merchants Row 1. It has gone through all the airbrushing, so all the segments of the structure have been painted, but none of the details have been painted. Contrast that with this structure, which is the Merchants Row 5 structure, which has gone through all the airbrushing, and the details have also been painted. So which do you prefer? I'm not sure that there is a correct or incorrect answer. I think what this amounts to is, how far should you go? It takes a while to do the detail painting. You have to usually apply at least 2 coats. You're going to make a bit of a mess, so there's going to be touch-up required. If you don't paint the details, you get a kind of a flat-looking structure like that. If you do, the structure is obviously more interesting, but is it worth the time to do that? So that is the question. And you can answer that however you want for your layout. These are background buildings. They're going to be at least 2 feet away from the viewer if the viewer is right up against the edge of the layout. And we won't be calling attention to them because trains will be running in front of them. So they're truly not prominent, but we want to do the best job we possibly can. So this is a matter of time, effort, and how much time you want to allocate to doing certain tasks. I think what I'm going to do in order to be consistent, now that we've done this one, I'm going to paint the details on this one. And we of course have a third structure, which is our DPM buildings, that we have not made this level of progress on yet, but you'll be seeing that coming up. So there's your comparison. Choose one or the other, depends on what you like and how much effort you're going to put in, how much time you have to do it, and where the structure is located on the layout. We'll be proceeding with the touch-up painting on our Emergency Row 1 structure, and we've already shown how that is done, so we will just simply do that work and show you the result when it is available. We are now able to see the results of our detail painting. This is our Emergency Row 1 structure with all the little details around the windows touched up with contrasting paint. And this is as far as we are going to go with this. We could do more of the details that you see, but we have decided that this will be sufficient for the needs that we have and in the way that we're using it. A little history. This is how it looked originally. That was the unpainted version. After we did some priming, it looked like this. After we completed airbrushing of the major segments, it looked like this. And now it has this appearance. That's the appearance that we're going to go with when we mount it on our little hill in the back of our town of Sherwood. Of course, other things need to be done. We need to put glazing in this. We need to dull coat it. We need to put a roof on it. We need to put some things in the windows that make it look like the building is occupied. There'll probably be images from the internet. And we need to put some lighting in. But that's as much painting as we are going to do. And we are considering this painting job to be complete right now. The companion building, this is Merchants Row 5. You may recall this is the one that went through the priming disaster. It's recovered to the point where we have painted all the details on it as well, and it is now, as Merchants Row 1 was, ready to be installed on the layout. To complete our series on structure painting, we'll give you a little preview of what this is going to look like when it is all put together. We have 3 separate structures, and they're all sitting on the wall, which is where they will be when we are done with them. Merchants Row 1, Merchants Row 5, and in the middle we have our structures that are a combination of 4 DPM kits. And you can see that we've commenced some of the painting. The brickwork has been all painted, and now we are proceeding to paint the trim. To do this DPM kit array that you see here, we decided to go 100% hand painting. I'm not sure that's how it's going to work out because we're not done, but right now I'm thinking at least on irregular surfaces, such as brickwork that you see on all these structures, hand painting looks as good as airbrushing. And furthermore, it does not require any of the time-consuming and, in some cases, destructive masking that we experienced on our other structures. It's something to keep in mind for your next structure. If you have flat sides and that sort of thing with no brick or relief, I would go with an airbrush if you have one. If you have structures like these with lots of indentations and lots of brick where there's no really flat structure to show the brush marks, it seems to me that airbrushing with all of its complications may not be superior to brush painting that you are seeing here. Now I'll zoom in as close as I can and we'll see what this really looks like. Hang on a second. That's as close as I can get. And I don't really believe that there's much to be said for airbrushing versus brush painting on these kinds of structures. So consider that for your next modeling activity. You may not even need an airbrush, or your airbrush may be useful only in certain circumstances. That concludes our structure painting segment. We have more to do on these structures, and those things will be shown in upcoming videos. For now, if you have questions or comments, please leave them in the space below. And we thank you for watching the Norfolk Southern Sherwood Subdivision.